Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Ask Rob and Rob, the show where you get your questions in and we get those answers right back to you, at least every Tuesday morning anyway. We got some great questions in this week, but before we tackle them, let's just give you a quick reminder of how you can get involved with the show.
Yeah, just give us a call on 013 808 0035, that's 013 808 0035, or you can go to propertyhub.net/ask on your computer. Either way, you'll have the option to leave us a voicemail. So all you've got to do is read out your question and ideally leave us your name, unlike our first questioner today.
Hi Rob and Rob, just looking for a bit of advice. I'm a first-time buyer and I'm looking to either buy my first property or make my first property a buy-to-let. I'm just wondering which would be the best way to go, to either buy a property to let before buying my own property, and if so, what sort of ramifications will I have when I come to buy my own property afterwards? Thanks.
Thank you for the question, and it is a very common one. It's the kind of question that comes up a lot, so you're not the only person wrestling with this issue. A lot of it, of course, will depend on your personal situation. So this is where I don't think you can or should strip emotion or practicalities completely out of the equation. So if having the emotional and real stability of owning your own home is really, really important to you, then that's something that you should do. And you shouldn't let just cold, hard numbers or rationalization talk yourself out of that. If, on the other hand, you're not settled at the moment, you don't know where you're going to be wanting to live in a couple of years' time, then chances are buying is not going to make sense for you given your situation, even if there were other factors to lead you to believe that it would. But let's put that aside for now and look at a couple of the big reasons why you might want to buy your own home first, because that's where the advantages really lie. The first likely advantage of buying your own home first is that, in general, it tends to be the case that someone's own home is more expensive than a buy-to-let. That's either because you're choosing to live in a particularly desirable area, or you're choosing to buy a 3 or 4 bedroom home, whereas buy-to-lets are more typically 1 or 2 bedrooms, or a combination of the two. Now, on the first purchase of any property you make, you'll be paying the normal rates of stamp duty, and for any additional purchases, you'll be paying an extra 3%. Therefore, it kind of makes sense to maximise paying the lower rates by buying your most expensive property first. So that's one factor to consider. The bigger factor to consider is that you will have more mortgage availability for buy-to-lets if you are a homeowner. There are mortgage options available for people who are looking to become a first-time investor without owning their own home, but there are fewer options. So you'll find that the rates or the fees might not be that competitive. If you are a homeowner first, then you're going to have the majority of the market available to you, and that can end up saving you quite a lot over a mortgage term. So those are some of the factors to weigh up. And you could, of course, go for a hybrid, such as buying your own home, then renting out a room and getting some more income coming in that way to build up your next deposit. So think about those factors and think about your own personal situation, put it all together, and hopefully you'll be able to come to a decision.
Alrighty, so our next question is from Jess, and she wants to know, what's wrong with Leicester?
Hi Rob and Rob, my name's Jess. Our local town is Leicester, and I'm just wondering why it never does very well property price-wise, why it doesn't seem to be benefiting very much in terms of capital growth. I know it did all right last year, but overall, the last sort of decade or so, it hasn't. What is it about the city? Thank you very much. Bye then.
If we're going to look at what's wrong with Leicester, we're obviously looking at property prices, although I'm sure there is absolutely nothing else wrong with it. So, if we focus on property prices, you're disappointed. Because over the last decade, you feel that it's not really done that well in terms of property prices increasing. So let's have a look at that, first of all, before we agree. When you actually look at the data, Leicester is up 47% over the last decade. Now, how does that compare to other cities? Well, if you look at it, it's actually outperformed Leeds, Liverpool, and even Birmingham over the last 10 years. The average for the whole of the UK is 54% over the last decade. So it's basically performed as average. So I think this comes down a bit more to expectations. What were you expecting? Because compared to the rest of the UK, it's done okay. Not amazing, but not awful. And this is why the market cycle is so important to understand, because different areas perform at different times. So let's have a look at two of those areas, Liverpool and Leeds, that we just mentioned. Because at the beginning of this year, Rob and I said that they are some of the best hotspots you can consider as a property investor. Are we mad because they performed really poorly over the last 10 years? No. It's actually because they have performed quite poorly over the last 10 years. And the fundamentals, just like Leicester, are so good. That gives us hope, and we think it's undervalued. So therefore, in the future, we believe that they'll perform really well. If an area has underperformed for a while, at some point it becomes undervalued. And then the opportunity arises because people have switched off to that particular area, and before everyone switches back onto it, you can get in and take advantage of it. Is Leicester one of those areas? Well, Leicester will do well in the future. Will it do as well as some of the areas we just mentioned? Maybe not, but it can still do really well. So for me, 50% growth with leverage in a decade that wasn't that spectacular for property is pretty good. But if you want more, you need to be in tune with the market cycles. I'll give you one more example. London's been the best performer over the last 10 years, and that has surged by 74% over the last decade. But the majority of that growth came in the first 5 to 6 years. For most of the last 4 years, London's been falling in real terms. So if you bought 4 years ago in London, you'd be thinking London's not been a great place to invest. If you bought 10 years ago in London, you'd be pretty happy with your position right now. So it's all about timing. The good news is, though, Leicester's in a decent position for where the market cycle is right now to see some really healthy, strong growth. And I'm fairly confident to say, and we can come back in 10 years if you want, that Leicester will do better in the next 10 years than it has done in the last 10 years. Time will tell. And if you come back in 10 years and tell me, you're very committed. But that's what we see happening. And that's based on the market cycles. So if you don't understand the market cycles, please do check out the 18-year property cycle. We've podcasted on that subject a few times. And there's a free course on a Property Hub website that you can take advantage of as well.
So that's 2 more questions answered. We'll be back to do it all again next week. So if you want to have your own question answered, send it in on 013 808 00035 or by going to propertyhub.net/ask. And in the meantime, we will next see you on Thursday for the Property Podcast. Until then, enjoy your week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.